issues. Jennifer works with people of all ages, all levels, with teachers, with learners, and on research, working with publishers as well. You might recognize Jennifer. She's a regular presenter at international conferences, and she writes on grammar, semantics, corpus linguistics, and the history of English. And she's come today to World Teachers' Day to talk about using visuals in teaching. And yeah, we're just so lucky to have you here to talk about this. It's such a great topic. I love this. I think everyone else is going to love this.
Good.
So, so Jennifer, we're ready to hand over to you. So when you want, you can start sharing your slides.
Okay, just give
I'll
me.
be here. And if you need me, you can say anytime throughout the webinar. Great, I can see that, Jennifer. Looks nice and clear.
Good. So let me just open the chat so that I can see the chat as well.
Great. So everyone enjoy this webinar. It's our fourth webinar of World Teachers' Day 2024. Let's start.
Okay, so hello everybody. Thank you for joining us today. And so as you know, my talk is about using pictures, visuals in English language teaching. And here is my plan for today. So we'll talk very briefly about visual literacy and communication in the modern world, the benefits of using visuals in English language teaching, and then we'll dive into the main body of my talk, which is practical applications. So it will be a very practical session, and we will see ways in which we can use visuals to teach vocabulary, which is perhaps the obvious application, but also phrasal verbs, grammar, pronunciation, and stress. And then at the end, of course, we'll have time for questions. Sorry, I'm just moving things around on the screen. Sorry. Okay. Good. So I will ask you to engage occasionally. So when you see this symbol, I will ask you perhaps to write in the chat, and those are moments of interaction. As I said, it will be a very practical session. So it would be a good idea if you have pen and paper so that you can draw. If you're good at drawing, but you'll see that it's not necessary to be particularly skilled at drawing. So talking about visual literacy, today we communicate mainly through images. So we see that most of the communication, even in PowerPoint presentations, we rely heavily on visuals. And especially on social media or online communication, if we post a lot of text, when people scroll, they will probably ignore our posts. But if we use images and pictures, then we will generate loads of interaction. And this is a bit characteristic of today's communication, which really relies a lot on images. And even on WhatsApp, when we communicate with other people with texts, we use emojis and we have whole conversations, perhaps not entirely using emojis, but we use them a lot. So why is the use of images so beneficial, not only in English language teaching in general when we teach any subject, but of course, we're talking about English language teaching. Well, if we rely on text, and by text, I mean not only written text, but also verbal explanation, accompanying it with images means that information will be taken in using two separate channels. And so there are more chances that knowledge will be stored in our long-term memory. Another notion I often rely on is polysemy. So this is just to give you a little bit of background. English has many polysemous words, and when we use one image for one word, it is obvious. But often we have one word that is associated with many different meanings, which are apparently disconnected. But we'll see that we can find a common denominator, and this really helps the students find connections and remember the various meanings of polysemous words more easily. Another notion that is useful is building, relying on prior knowledge. I'll give you an example. So if we wanted to teach the meaning of turn up, the phrasal verb turn up, meaning arrive unexpectedly or in contrast with expectations, we could draw a man rotating out of the ground to convey this idea of unexpectedness. And to be effective, students, of course, would need to be already acquainted with the meaning of turning and with the meaning of up. And this is an example. So turn up. And of course, it is easier to remember a picture than just a translation or the explanation of a word. And this normally tends to stick in the memory of students. So let's see more practical applications. We will see them in vocabulary, in grammar, and also pronunciation and stress. As I was saying earlier, the most obvious and easiest application of using visuals is to teach new vocabulary. Relying on polysemy, and our brain, one thing our brain is very good at doing is finding patterns. So these are the concepts I will be relying on. And here we have a little interaction moment. So what do you think these words have in common? I'll show you some pictures. So this is an elephant trunk. I hope it is clear. The trunk of a car or boot, depending on the term you prefer, swimming trunks, and a tree trunk. So what do you think these words have in common? If we had to find one common denominator or an image that can summarize all the different meanings. Trunks, yes. Yes, of course, the word trunk, but if we had to associate it with a picture, spelling, homograph, I'm reading the answers in the chat. Oh, a long hollow object, a cylinder. Yes, very good. Thank you, Sophia. Pronunciation is the same. A cylinder, Kanza, yes. Exactly. So a cylinder, I'll show you. So a schematic picture of a cylindrical container. So whether it is the elephant trunk, the trunk in a car horizontally, or the swimming trunks, imagine two cylinders, and of course, the tree trunk. Or again, let's see another one. What do these words have in common? Here we have a bow tie, elbow, and rainbow. Bow, yes, of course. Yes, the word bow is contained inside the names, joined by edges. One teacher says a curve. Yes, a line, a curve. So these are most of the comments. Good. So again, if we wanted to represent it schematically, we could just show the schematic representation of an arch, as in bow tie, elbow, and rainbow. Yes. Because often we do not really think of, how words are built. For instance, elbow, I like to show the shape of an L referring to elbow, and students find this curiously illuminating. Now, many people wonder if they need to be good at drawing because they feel they may not be particularly skilled at drawing, but we do not really need to draw, so we don't need to be artists. So we can simply use stickmen, we can use arrows, circles, wavy lines, and color, of course. Sometimes we don't even need to draw, so we can simply evoke the image in the mind of a learner, and then I will show you. And you can use your body, your facial expressions and gestures. So I'm based in Italy, and as you know, Italians use their hands a lot. So this is very handy, let's say. Now, again, a moment of interaction. So draw has many different meanings. So for example, draw a line, draw a curtain, meaning pull the curtain, or draw a conclusion, draw a prize, as a noun, a prize draw, or even drawer, or withdraw money from a bank, or withdraw troops. Now, if you had to try and explain the various meanings of draw with or without drawing. Now, I'll go back to the previous slide so that you can see them. What would you do? So have you a try. And please write your answers in the chat. I'll go back to the previous slide so that you can see the different meanings. In and out movement, Detri. Ibrahim, draw a line. Siam, gesture, very good. Arrows. A movement with the hand, Mohammed. Perhaps, yes, a gesture. Movement. An action, yes. Mimics and gestures, Allegra, right. Good. Hand gestures, very good. Yes, because if you think of all the meanings, I'll stop sharing for a moment. So to draw a line, to draw a conclusion, draw the curtain, or even drawer. So yes, it is a sliding gesture, or a prize draw, or even withdraw money from the bank. So in this case, it's not really a picture, but it is a gesture. And there you are. It's a sliding gesture, as most of you wrote in the chat. And this really explains all the meanings of draw. And so it's much easier for students to remember, of course, all the different meanings that would seem apparently disconnected. Another example is cue. Now, I had a student years ago who was really struggling with vocabulary. He had learning difficulties. I'll stop sharing again, sorry. So he had learning difficulties, and he had a test at school, and he had to learn a list of words, and it was very difficult for him. He was really struggling. And so we came up with little stories for every single word. And I particularly enjoyed this one, and this was years ago, and I met him last year, and he told me he still remembers the spelling, the pronunciation. And so the example is Q. And students often have difficulty because of the spelling, the pronunciation. It has many silent letters. They don't remember the meaning. So what I did was to tell this student to imagine a round room and people waiting in a line to get into this room. And so you see what I'm getting at. So here we have the letter Q. So of course, everybody knows the alphabet. And so we had the pronunciation and the concept of people lining up to get into a room. Then depending on the L1 of your students, I could do this because I'll show you now in Italian. We can take it even further. So I told this student that the last person standing in the queue was a woman holding a baby, and the baby was fed up with waiting, and it started crying. And when babies cry in Italian, let's say, the sound is transcribed as where. And so you would also have the spelling. Of course, as I said, this would not work in other languages because sounds are transcribed in different ways. But in Italian, we had the concept of queuing to get into a room. We had the pronunciation represented by the letter Q. And we also had the spelling given by the idea of this baby crying and producing the sound where. And he just never forgot the word. Another example, this is a bit far-fetched, but it was just to show you that imagination has no limits. So it's really up to you. Mug, as in the object that we use to drink, and get mugged. So typically what happens to elderly ladies, maybe walking in the street when a thief runs past and snatches her handbag. So what is the connection between a mug and get mugged? So you can see the container with the handle and an elderly lady, again, so you can imagine the arm as a handle. And so it's easier to connect the less known meaning of get mugged to the word mug, just as a memory hook, really. Or again, I will ask you here a few questions. Spring. So spring has many different meanings. It can be a season. It can be a piece of metal, the one that we use, for instance, inside pens. It can be water popping out of the ground. It can be a verb, to spring, to move quickly. And we also find it in idiomatic expressions like spring to life or spring to mind. Again, we see different meanings all associated with one single word. When we choose images, do you think any image will do? I'll show you some pictures. So for example, spring as in the season, spring as in water coming out of the ground, spring as in the metal spring, spring to life, or spring to mind. Now, do you think these images are, yes, they represent the different meanings, but are they effective if we wanted to find one single concept that is common to all of these different meanings? Do you think these would be effective? Yes, okay. All right, but we can choose better images because here I don't really see a connection. They could be, different meanings, but they do not link all of the meanings to one single concept. So if we choose visuals more carefully, and find a common denominator, what do you think the common denominator for all of these words is? If we had to summarize them in one single picture. Jump, rebirth, change, good. Coming into existence, Marina movement, Sophia appear, Anam, metal spring moving up, yes. A sudden coming out, Sonia, yes. Joy, I like that. Happiness, happiness, a lot of you associated to happiness. That's very nice. So let's see. Spring. So we can imagine flowers popping out of the ground. Spring, water popping out of the ground. A metal spring, so the basic element that is the common denominator. Spring to life, so as someone suggested, upward movement, jumping upwards, and also spring to mind. So if we choose the pictures carefully, I think this set of images is much more effective than the previous 5 I showed you. And yes, the common denominator is the spring and this upward movement. And of course, if you cannot find images on the internet, now we can rely on AI, on ChatGPT, and we can, if you have a specific picture in mind, you can ask ChatGPT to generate it for you. This is what I did, for example, with the first picture of the flower and the last one with the brain on top of a spring. Another area where visuals are extremely useful is for teaching phrasal verbs. So all of you know that phrasal verbs are notoriously difficult for our students because there are so many. They have multiple meanings. Again, they can be polysemous. Just think of take off can mean remove, like take off your jacket, but it can also be a plane that takes off. So 2 very different meanings, or they may have different constructions. And often they start out as verbs associated to a physical meaning, and then they develop metaphorical extensions, figurative uses. And let's see how we can use images to help our students. For instance, look into has a physical meaning. For example, he looked inside into the box. But it also has a figurative meaning to examine something in detail. So, for example, we are looking into the possibility of merging 2 departments, so to analyze something in detail. So the idea is to use images that link the physical meaning to the metaphorical meaning. And you could draw 2 pictures, for instance. There you are. So the first one showing looking into a box, and the second, with a lens that you can examine facts. So it really gives this idea of looking into physical, but also to examine details. Or another example with the phrasal verb, hand in or hand out. The teacher handed out books to all the pupils, meaning distributed, or the teacher told the children to hand in their homework. So all the children had to give the teacher their homework. And this is easy. So to hand out, you can draw the picture of a hand with arrows in multiple directions, or hand in several hands converging into a single point. Of course, these are just, a few chosen examples, but you can really develop them for for many, many phrasal verbs. Now, I would like you to try a few more. So the first one is chest, meaning part of your body, or a wooden container for old objects, or a chest of drawers. So if you had to draw one single concept that is common to all of these meanings, what would you draw? A square, very good. A box, a container, a rectangle, yes, all spot on. A squared container. Dali's painting, good. A square man, great. Ibrahim. Erica square, yes. So most of you are perfectly aligned. A box, a square, a container. Yes, of course. And again, we can draw a very simple picture of a stick man with a square body, or a chest here where we put our objects, or a chest of drawers. But again, you see that very different concepts become easier to remember because of one image. Another one for you. And here we have branch. So it can be the physical branch of a tree, the branch of a bank, a branch of maths, or even as a verb. So I wrote an example here. The road to the coast branches off here. And I see some answers coming in. Lines, Kirsty. Tree diagram, you, Denny. A tree, Mohammed. A map, Erica. Arm. A mind map, Baraka. Mental map, yes, a lot of people write mental map. T-chart diagram, Apollinaire. Mind map. Flowchart, mind map. A main line with sublines coming out, Nada. Yes, so that is the idea. So again, these are simple drawings that I just, put up on the whiteboard while teaching. So of course, a physical branch, the branch of a bank, or a road that branches off. Now, rise. Here we will make a distinction. The first one is rise. So it is an intransitive verb, as the sun rises in the east, the cake that is rising in the oven. Prices have risen a lot over recent years, so we want to convey the idea of intransitivity, and then we will see also transitivity. Upward movement, an arrow going up, yes, go up, arrow upwards, pointing up. Yes, Pierre, an arrow. Upward line, May. Ibrahim, a sun with a cake on the top. And also maybe the sun below it, Gloria. Going high. Very good. So again, very simple pictures. So a cake with the arrow coming from the cake to give the idea, the sun as well, and also a dollar, $100 note. So this gives the idea of rise, of going up, let's say independently, to convey the idea of intransitivity. And now we have raise, which is transitive. So somebody raising a bridge, somebody raising their hand, or raising funds for charity. again, how can we show the distinction between rise, intransitive, and raise, which is transitive? Hands, hand movement, I read. Sophia, arrow from below. Sit and stand slowly. Okay, pictures, yes. Lifting up something. Yes, of course, you need to represent somebody acting upon something else. Otherwise, there may be confusion between raise and rise. So, very simply, a stick man acting upon a bridge. So, to raise a bridge, acting upon money, so to raise money, or a hand. I don't know if you can see that this is a hand. So to raise your hand. And of course, giving the idea of going upwards. But if you notice, you can see the difference between sorry, I'm going back, between rise and raise. Now let's come to grammar. So, of course, grammar, we are used to explaining tenses using timelines, but we can also use visuals for other aspects of grammar. So, for example, when I explain the difference between the present perfect simple, present perfect, and present perfect progressive, which is often one aspect that is difficult for students because they may not have the equivalents in their own languages. So what I normally do is use two icons, a camera for the present perfect simple to talk about a result. And here you can see it as in, I've painted my office. Do you like it? It's like showing the picture of my newly painted office. And I use a video camera, the icon of a video camera, to represent the present perfect progressive when it is used to focus on a prolonged action that has visible effects in the present. The typical context in our grammar books is something like, you're covered in paint. What have you been up to? And the answer would be, oh, I've been painting my office. And in this case, when I'm drilling these tenses with my students, what I simply ask is it a photo or is it a video that you're talking about? And they immediately know the answer because it is associated with a concept that is readily available in their minds. They don't have to think about grammar rules. So it's just two easy concepts to remember. Another very practical application is to explain to. So to is polysemous again, because it has many different functions in English, from a physical preposition of direction, motion, and goal. What I normally do is simply represent an arrow and a dot representing the goal. Or sometimes I just use a gesture. This gesture, my students know I'm telling them to use to. So in English, for example, when we use it as a preposition of direction, I'm going to London, to England, or to the mechanics. In Italian, for instance, as in many other languages, we would use different prepositions depending on whether we are going to a city, to a country, or to a shop, to a professional. But all of these meanings are associated to one single concept in English. And we can also use the same concept of motion, of movement towards a goal, even when we explain verbs followed by double object, like give something to somebody, show something to somebody. Again, the idea is always goal-oriented, or even telling the time. So students often get confused. It's 10:15, 2:10. 2 gives the idea of reaching 10 o'clock. So goal-oriented, and we can represent it like this. And we can take it even further. So 2 is also used as a marker for the infinitive, but historically the marker of the infinitive is an extension of the preposition of motion. And we can see it in various contexts. So here we can see 3 examples of 2. The first is I want to go. Again, want requires a to infinitive because wishes, desires are projected in the future, so goal-oriented. To England is the preposition of motion, so again, goal-oriented, forward-looking. And even the infinitive of purpose, so the reason why I'm going to England, to study English. And again, our goals are forward-looking. So we can represent all of these functions of to with an arrow and a goal. One more function is when we want to explain verbs that are either followed, some verbs are either followed by ing or by an infinitive. For example, remember, when remember is followed by ing, it refers to something that has already happened. So she remembered buying some milk, meaning she had already bought it. Whereas she remembered to buy some milk means that she remembered and then she bought the milk. So again, this idea of looking forward, goal-oriented, is useful in reminding our students of the different meanings associated with ing or the to infinitive with certain verbs. And very quickly, pronunciation and stress. So maybe when we teach pronunciation or stress, we will not use pictures in the strictest sense. However, we may use other elements. For example, we can use hyphens between syllables to help pronunciation. We may use block capitals to show a specific stress. Bold text to make it even more visible. Color. Or even lines and triangles, which are visually more effective. Now, normally when we write on our whiteboards, we tend to use accents just to show stressed syllables. But simple accents do not always help, as in photograph versus photography. I think that after 2 seconds, our students will have forgotten where the word was stressed. And so we can, again, use block capitals, we can use color, and this is much more memorable than a simple accent. And sentence stress. Sentence stress is crucial in English to convey specific meanings. In other languages, you would tend to rearrange a sentence structure to give prominence to the element you want to stress. And what we can do is use roof-shaped lines or triangles to make sentence stress more visible. For instance, if we look at the English, if we wanted to say, I told him, meaning I did not keep quiet. Or I told him, so it was not Mark who told him, it was me. Or I told him, I did not tell Sarah though. These are all written in the same way. In Italian, for instance, you would rearrange sentence structure, say gliel'ho detto, gliel'ho detto io, l'ho detto a lui. So stress always falls in the final part of the sentence, and we change the structure. Whereas in English, we have to rely on intonation. And so what I normally do is make it very visible. So using these roof-shaped lines or triangles, so it tends to stick more in the memory. So you make stress more visible to the eyes, not only to the ears. So in conclusion, what you need is a pen and imagination. You will have to work out your own systems, your own images, your own visual representations. And as you can see here, so this is my handwriting. This is what I normally do when I'm writing on a board. So these are the roof-shaped lines to show intonation, hand out, hand in, or turn up. So digital images are fine, yes, of course, but often we do not have a computer when we are teaching. We may not have a digital board. So in a normal teaching context, all you need is really pen, a whiteboard, and as I said, imagination. So to recap, I think relying on visual materials is really an invaluable resource. It improves clarity, information processing, and retention, because it's much easier to remember an image than a string of words. And visuals can be used for teaching basically anything in language, from vocabulary to grammar, pronunciation, and intonation, which become visible and can be learned through your eyes as well, or our students' eyes. So a little reflection for you. I would like you to tell me what you think you would be using visuals for, and if there is an idea which you liked most. Teaching grammar. Thank you, Ibrahim. Yes, I find that visuals are very effective for teaching grammar. Stress, good. New vocabulary, phrasal verbs, Maria. Sorry, the answers are coming in very fast. Okay, stress, intonation, and chunking. Yes, excellent. Tenses. Yes, somebody wrote that visuals are very effective for teaching primary students. Yes, of course, but even advanced students will benefit from using visuals. To make the abstract more concrete. Yes, I completely agree. Pronunciation, grammar and vocabulary, Rupa pronunciation. Thank you, Udeni. Thank you. Udeni says, I love your pyramid for stress. The visuals for spring. Thank you. Yes. Parts of speech. Yes, that can be done too. Antonius, to sum up things. Pictures with spring. That's what you liked most. Thank you. Parts of speech. And prepositions, Ashraf. Edna says a lot to take home for figurative meaning. Yes, for phrasal verbs, I think that for phrasal verbs, it is very effective. to make compound words, yes. And even for pronunciation in compound words. Prepositions, figurative words, grammar. Rossana Terrazzi, video and camera for present perfect, simple and continuous. Yes, this is very effective. And it's easy, it's really easy to associate with the two functions, these two functions of present perfect and present perfect progressive. Thank you. So thank you for all of your comments. Thank you. And body language, yes, with pictures, Amina. Yes, body language is really useful. Thank you. So thank you for your comments. It was lovely to read all of them.
Great. Thanks so much, Jennifer.
Thank
I mean, the comments just, they're not stopping, are they? I think
No,
we
no.
could stay here
It's a
until
shame
nine
not to
o'clock at
read
night.
all of them. Thank you,
I
you did.
mean,
Very
yeah,
kind.
I've written down just a couple of comments. I mean, people are saying thanks. Sophia said it was really helpful today, and I really, yeah, want to agree with Sophia and say helpful is definitely a word I would use to describe the session. And I want to read another one which I thought was funny. It's from Anam or Anam. I'm not sure where the stress is on your name, Anam. And it just says, wow, woo, brilliant. I hope you like that, Jennifer, as a
Yes.
comment.
But you see, sounds as well. So not only visual, but also sounds are very effective.
Yeah. Well, Jennifer, you can stop sharing your slides now, and then we
Yes.
can start looking at questions because there are definitely questions coming in. So there's still time to write a question for Jennifer to answer. If you're watching us in Zoom, you can put it in the Q&A area. If you're watching this on Facebook, write it in the comments, and I can see it and I can pass them across. So, Jennifer, we had loads of fun. I mean, I've been trying to draw. I don't know if you can see
Yes,
this,
oh,
not very good. And I
good.
also drew how happy I was at your session,
Good.
just a smiley face. So lots of questions have come up, and yeah, let's start taking a few. Um, One is quite simple, and I want to ask it because I want to know how did you learn to draw? How did you learn about this, Jen?
I just came natural, really. So um, I once I was years ago, I was at it was the Oxford Summer Seminar for teachers. It's a 2-week course. And at the end of the course, there was a poster presentation. And one of the teachers participating had attended a course in drawing for teachers. And
Oh,
I've I've looked for a course of this kind ever since, but never found it. So, and it taught her to create really simple drawings, but very effective. And that is
Mhm.
something that would be very useful. So simple drawings to um, to help us when teaching. So what I do is not real drawings; it's just giving the idea of certain notions, but I would not call that drawing.
I would definitely call that.
I enjoy drawing, but these are really simple because they have to be quick and something that you can create in just a couple of seconds while explaining. And
Yeah. Oh, great. No, I think what you do is definitely real drawing. I have
I think
nothing
in
but
pictures.
respect and
I
awe.
think in pictures. So this is why I always tend to translate everything in
Hmm.
pictures.
Wow. Um, let's let's go to one which I think you've just answered, but let's go back to it. It's from Mohammed. And Mohammed asks, Um, are these pictures kind of universally used by lots of the teachers you know, or do you just use your own creativity
I,
for
I
finding the
use my
meaning?
own. I use my own, and I think it's. I mean, I've never seen any universal pictures, so apart from timelines, but
Uh-huh.
you know, when you explain and you find connections, then I really just find my own connections. So some are obvious, as in spring, or
Mm-hmm.
eyes. I mean, all the answers were in that respect. Um,
Uh-huh.
but otherwise, I just create them. Some are like the cue. That was a little story, and I invented that with my student, and it was so funny.
Yeah. I like that one. I'll remember that one because of the story that comes with
Yes,
it, right?
yes, that's it. So you have the
Yeah.
concept, the spelling, well, the spelling only with Italian students, but the pronunciation and everything.
Yeah. Oh, it's really really great. Um, you touched on this question, but let's come back to it. It's from Kirsty, and Kirsty asks about visuals and AI. You've tried it because you showed us one example. Do you think teachers are going to be using AI more and more? Will this help people like me who can't draw?
Yes, yes. So I think it is an invaluable resource. The only
Mm-hmm.
problem with AI I notice is that if you ask it to generate a picture with words, there it is
Mm-hmm.
not very, it will mix different languages, different writing systems. So if you ask to ChatGPT, for instance, to generate a chart with an image with prepositions, then it will be a bit messy because it just mixes languages. I don't know why. But if it is
Mm.
just a simple image, then it is really effective. And so you can use it because often we just do not find pictures available, freely available on the internet.
Yeah, yeah, it's really hard to find pictures that we can freely use. So yeah, AI can help with that, but I know what you mean about you have to be very exact in the way that you write because that depends really on what you'll get.
Yes.
But yeah, teachers should try it out. You can become better with practice, I think,
Yeah,
with
yeah.
AI prompting. Uh-huh. Um, let's uh let's take another. Um, and it's from a teacher called Allegra, who's in fact a presenter who will meet on Saturday. Um, and she asks, do you use drawings to teach phonics? So I'm not sure, Jennifer, do you work with children as young as that? Because phonics is usually for primary. So it's
Well, we have
teens you work
students,
with.
so personally, yes. So the
Mhm.
teachers working in my school, so we have students who are aged 7 to 70.
Uh-huh.
I do not teach primary students
Okay,
myself,
but
teenagers upwards.
it sounds like something that primary teachers could use, I'm sure. If
Yes,
you're
of
a primary teacher and you're watching, tell us, were some of these techniques useful for you? I mean, I
yes,
imagine that they're going to say yes, because visuals are really, really, really helpful for you've talked about grammar, phrasal verbs, but just basic vocabulary.
sounds, yes. I like Sophia's question. Curious if elbow is the actual etymology of elbow. I don't know, but when I tell my students, I say elbow, and I show them and they just, they say, I never thought of it in that way.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
true, because you just think of, the word, but you don't think elbow.
Yeah, no, it's memorable. That's the thing. I think that's the thing that really makes it stick. It's putting a kind of another spin on things. Students have had the definition, they've heard it, they've seen it in sentences. It's just another great way to make it stick for them. Um, just this is a question from me, just curious. How do you work with students with the pictures? I mean, do you ask them to copy them down? Do they get things they stick in notebooks? Do they make a vocabulary notebook that includes pictures? Is that something you do as well?
So not necessarily, but sometimes I just, especially for more complex ideas like present perfect versus present perfect progressive. And I also have other pictures for the other functions of present perfect and present perfect
Oh.
progressive. So I have created a sheet that I call the present perfect cross because it has 4 sectors. And I just make copies and give it to them. So then I talk them through the explanation, and they really enjoy it because that is a difficult area for them.
Yeah, yeah, great. Well, I think that we are running out of time, Jennifer. So thank you for all of your ideas. It sounds like you have loads more ideas, loads more visuals for lots more things. So yeah, come back another time and tell us more for sure. So thanks, audience. You were great. You participated loads. Thanks also to the moderators who are working behind the scene. We've got Steve and Ming and Joe here. And on Facebook, I think we've got Wiam and Karen who are helping us out. And of course, huge thanks to Jennifer.
Thank you. I thank everybody. I thank you for your help, and
So
everybody for being here today and for your lovely interactions.
yeah, it's been great. So happy World Teachers Day, everyone. But don't go away. We'll be back in 15 minutes with another webinar from two teachers in Nigeria who are going to talk about managing teaching resources. So we will see you very soon. Bye, everyone. Bye, Jennifer.
Bye. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.